I've come back, human. An alien's emotional reunion after years. HFY Sci-Fi HFY. The human outpost called Horizon Reach floated quietly at the edge of explored space. It was not large or powerful, and it was not meant to be. It existed to listen, to watch, and to remind the galaxy that humanity was present, even this far from Earth. Most days were slow. Ships passed at a distance. Stars burned in silence. Humans learned patience among the stars. Commander Elias Rowan had learned that patience well. He stood alone in the communications bay, watching long-range signal graphs scroll across a transparent screen. His hair had more gray than when he first arrived at Horizon Reach, and the lines on his face were deeper. Space did that to humans. It stretched time, made memories heavier. The night shift was usually quiet. That was why the signal stood out. At first it looked like background noise, a weak pulse, barely above static, drifting in from deep space. The system almost filtered it out automatically. Almost. Elias frowned and leaned closer. He adjusted the settings by hand, something younger officers rarely did anymore. The signal sharpened, then stabilized. It was old, very old. Using a format humans had stopped using years ago. That alone made Elias uneasy. Then the translation software finished its work. 5 words appeared on the screen. "I've come back, human." Elias froze. His heart beat once, hard enough that he felt it in his chest. For a moment he thought he was tired. Maybe his mind was playing tricks on him. Space isolation caused that sometimes, but the signal repeated. "I've come back, human." The voice was not human. It was smooth, controlled, and carefully shaped, as if the speaker had practiced each sound many times. Elias recognized it instantly. Karash. Elias slowly lowered himself into the command chair. He stared at the words as if they might disappear. His hands trembled, and he closed them into fists to steady himself. Karash was not supposed to come back. Virelians did not return. That was what the galaxy believed. That was what the Virelian conquered had stated clearly, coldly, and publicly years ago. When a mission ended, so did all connections formed during it. Alliances were temporary. Cooperation was functional. Memory was optional. Humans had never fully accepted that idea, but they had learned to live with it. Elias remembered the mission as if it had happened yesterday. A joint exploration task force, a collapsing star system, a navigation failure that left their ship drifting between gravity wells, systems failing one by one, panic among the crew, and Karash, calm, precise, calculating solutions while the universe tried to tear them apart. They had worked side by side for 12 days. They had saved each other's lives more than once. And then, when rescue came, Karash had been ordered away without farewell, without explanation, without even a backward glance. Elias had stood on the docking platform, watching the Virelian ship leave, feeling something twist painfully inside his chest. He told himself it did not matter. That was how aliens were. Humans were the strange ones for feeling loss. He had been wrong. The proximity alarm sounded. Elias straightened instantly. "Identify incoming vessel," he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. The system responded. "Single ship detected. Configuration matches Virelian design. Severe hull damage, no active weapons." The words sent a ripple of tension through the station. Security teams mobilized. Defense systems powered up, though no one said it aloud. A lone Virelian ship, unarmed, drifting toward a human outpost was unheard of. The docking request arrived seconds later. Elias authorized it before anyone could question him. As the ship approached, its condition became clear. Scorch marks covered its hull. Several external systems were offline. It looked like a ship that had traveled too far and paid a price for it. Elias watched through the viewport as it locked into place. His reflection stared back at him in the glass, older, tired, but still standing. "Commander," a junior officer said quietly, "the Virelian conquered has not logged any diplomatic contact. This ship is not authorized. I know, Elias replied. Protocol says, protocol can wait, Elias said gently but firmly. Prepare medical and environmental support, Virelian standards. The officer hesitated, then nodded. When the airlock opened, silence filled the docking bay. Karash stepped forward. He looked almost exactly the same. Tall, slender, with pale blue-gray skin and dark, reflective eyes. His posture was controlled, but Elias noticed something immediately. Karash paused. It was brief, almost invisible, but it was there. A hesitation. Virelians did not hesitate. Elias took a step forward. "Welcome to Horizon Reach," he said, Karash's gaze fixed on him. The alien studied his face slowly, as if comparing memory to reality. Then Karash inclined his head. "You are still here," Karash said. Elias gave a small, tired smile. "So are you." The silence between them was heavy, filled with years of unspoken questions. Security officers waited for Elias' signal. Scientists watched from behind observation glass. Everyone expected tension, conflict, or cold diplomacy. Instead, Elias simply said, "You look like you could use rest." Karash's eyes flickered. "I did not return for maintenance." "I know," Elias replied. That answer seemed to unsettle the alien more than any threat would have. Karash followed Elias into the station. His movements were careful, as if he expected to be stopped at any moment. He was escorted but not restrained. That alone was unusual enough to send rumors spreading through the outpost. As they walked, Karash spoke quietly. "Your species continues to place trust where it has not been calculated." Elias shrugged. "We calculate differently." They stopped in a private observation room overlooking the stars. Elias dismissed the guards. They obeyed without argument. Karash turned to face him fully. "The conquered will deny me," Karash said. "They will state that I no longer exist." Elias nodded. "I figured as much." "You are not obligated to assist me," Karash continued. "Your species gains nothing measurable from this interaction." Elias looked out at the stars, then back at Karash. "Funny thing about humans, we don't always do things for measurable reasons." Karash was silent for a long moment. "I remembered you," he said finally. The words were spoken carefully, as if each one carried weight. "Virelians are not supposed to do that," Elias said softly. "No," Karash agreed. "We are not." The admission hung between them like a fragile bridge. Outside the room, the galaxy continued on as it always had. Old powers watched, calculated, and judged humanity as emotional, temporary, and naive. Inside the room, a single truth had quietly formed. Something had changed. An alien had crossed years and stars not for duty, not for orders, not for survival, but to return to a human who never stopped keeping the space beside him empty. And that was only the beginning. The news of the Virelian ship spread through Horizon Reach faster than any official announcement. Humans talked in low voices in corridors, in mess halls, and behind sealed doors. No one said it openly, but everyone understood the risk. Hosting an unauthorized Virelian was not a small diplomatic mistake. It was a challenge to one of the oldest powers in known space. Commander Elias Rowan sat in the observation room long after Karash had been escorted to a secured guest chamber. The stars beyond the glass felt distant now, as if they were watching him instead of the other way around. He knew what was coming. The galaxy never ignored broken rules. The first message arrived within the hour. It came from the Virelian Conquered, transmitted on a priority channel that demanded immediate attention. The tone was cold, formal, and precise. The Conquered stated that the individual known as Karash was no longer recognized as a citizen, operative, or legal entity. Any assistance offered by humans would be considered interference in internal Virelian matters. The message ended with a warning, carefully worded but clear: "Release him, or face consequences." Elias read the message twice, then leaned back in his chair. He felt no anger, only a deep, familiar frustration. Ancient civilizations always spoke as if the universe belonged to them. He forwarded the message to Earth Command and the Colonial Council. Then he waited. Karash, meanwhile, stood alone in his assigned chamber. The room had been adjusted for Virelian comfort, but he barely noticed. His thoughts were unstable, jumping in ways that would have concerned his people greatly. He replayed the moment Elias had recognized him, the lack of surprise, the calm acceptance. Humans were dangerous in ways the conquered never measured. A soft chime signaled the door opening. Elias entered without guards. "The conquered has spoken," Elias said. Karash inclined his head. "That was expected." "They want me to hand you over," Elias continued, quietly. "And you will not," Karash replied, not as a question. Elias smiled slightly. "No, I won't." Karash studied him. "Your species values honesty, yet you are choosing deception." "We're choosing time," Elias corrected. "Big difference." Karash's eyes narrowed. "Time for what?" "For the galaxy to remember something it forgot," Elias said. Across the station, small changes began to happen. A maintenance delay here. A systems audit there. Requests for clarification sent and resent through official channels. Humans did not block the conquered directly. They slowed everything down, buried the demand in procedure and regulation. To outsiders, it looked like inefficiency. To humans, it was strategy. The second message arrived, this time from the Galactic Mediation Assembly. Neutral observers demanded access to Karash, citing concerns about coercion and manipulation. The implication was clear. Humans were suspected of exploiting an alien defector. Elias allowed the observers to come, but only under human station law. Karash watched the process with growing confusion. "You are inviting scrutiny," he said. "Yes," Elias replied, "on our terms." The observers arrived and questioned Karash in a transparent chamber. They expected fear, confusion, or signs of control. They found none. Karash answered every question calmly, precisely, and without contradiction. "I returned by choice," Karash stated. "No human compelled me." "And why did you return?" an observer asked. Karash paused. That pause was noticed. "I returned," he said slowly, "because I did not complete my obligations." The observers exchanged glances. "To whom?" "To myself," Karash replied. That answer spread quickly across the station and beyond. Analysts struggled to categorize it. Virelians were not known for self-directed purpose. Earth Command finally responded. They did not order Elias to surrender Karash. Instead, they asked for justification. Elias provided it. He spoke of the past mission, of trust under pressure, of cooperation without hierarchy. He spoke of Karash's voluntary return and the absence of threat. He avoided emotional language, but the meaning was clear. This was not a hostage. This was not a weapon. This was a choice. The conquered sent a third message, sharper, less polite. They warned that harboring Karash would damage future relations. Trade agreements could be reconsidered. Scientific exchanges frozen. Elias forwarded the message again. Then he walked to Karash's chamber. "You knew this would happen," Elias said. "Yes," Karash replied. "Your species will suffer measurable loss." "Probably," Elias agreed. "Why proceed?" Karash asked. Elias looked at him steadily. "Because if we don't, then everything we say about ourselves is a lie." Karash processed that in silence. Elsewhere in the galaxy, something unexpected was happening. Smaller species watched the situation closely. They saw humans standing against pressure without aggression. They saw law used as a shield instead of a weapon. Messages of quiet support began to arrive. Not official. Not public, but real, the conquered noticed. A Virelian envoy requested direct communication with Elias. The tone was different now, curious. Concerned, they asked a simple question. "What does the human gain?" Elias answered honestly. "Nothing," he said. "That's the point." The envoy ended the call without response. Karash stood beside Elias afterward, gazing at the stars. "My people will not understand this." Elias nodded. "Most people don't at first." What will you do if they escalate? Karash asked. Elias smiled faintly. We'll keep doing what we do best. And what is that? Karash asked. Elias looked back at him. We'll stay. The station remained calm, but tension ran beneath every system hum. The galaxy was watching. Old powers weighed cost against precedent. New alliances quietly shifted. For the first time in a long while, humanity was not reacting. They were choosing. And that choice, calm and unyielding, was beginning to unsettle civilizations far older than Earth. The tension around Horizon Reach became so thick that even the silence felt heavy. Ships no longer passed by without slowing. Long-range sensors detected increased traffic near the sector, not military formations, but observers. Everyone wanted to see what humans would do next. Commander Elias Rowan felt the pressure every moment. He slept little, ate when reminded, and spent most of his time reviewing laws, treaties, and old agreements that few people had read in decades. Humans had written many of them together with older species, back when humanity had been eager to prove it could follow rules. Now those same rules were becoming shields. Karash noticed the change in Elias. "You are deteriorating," he said during one of their quiet conversations. Elias smiled weakly. "Humans call this being busy." Karash studied him. "You are risking much." "I know." "For me," Karash added. "For the idea," Elias corrected. "You're just the proof." The next move did not come from the Virelian Concord. It came from the Galactic Security Council. A formal notice arrived stating that an enforcement delegation was en route to Horizon Reach. Their authority allowed them to seize individuals deemed destabilizing to interstellar order. The message was neutral in tone, but the meaning was clear. This time, delay would not be enough. The station went into controlled readiness. Not a lockdown, not a defense posture. Just readiness. Every human on board understood the difference. Karash stood in the observation room when Elias received the notice. He read it once, then closed the display. "They will take me," Karash said. "They'll try," Elias replied. "You cannot oppose them openly," Karash said. "They are protected by multilateral force agreements." Elias nodded. "That's why we won't oppose them openly." Karash turned to face him. "Explain." Elias leaned against the railing, looking out at the stars. "Years ago, during that mission we survived together, do you remember the Auxiliary Navigation Corps?" Karash's eyes flickered. "Yes, it was outdated and inefficient." "You wanted to shut it down," Elias said. "I told you to keep it running." "Because you believed redundancy had value," Karash said. "And because it wasn't tied into the main system," Elias added. "No one thought it mattered." Karash was silent. "That core saved us when everything else failed," Elias continued. "Not because it was powerful. Because it was ignored." Understanding slowly formed in Karash's expression. "You have prepared something." "We prepared a framework," Elias said, "a long time ago. When the Security Council ships arrived, they did not fire weapons or issue threats. They transmitted legal demands, citations, and authorization codes. They requested immediate transfer of Karash into their custody. Elias welcomed them. The delegation boarded the station with confidence. Their uniforms bore the symbols of ancient alliances. Their leader, a tall being from a species older than Earth's first cities, addressed Elias directly. "You are in violation of interstellar stability protocols," the envoy said. "You will comply." Elias nodded politely. "We intend to." Karash felt a strange sensation then. Disappointment. He had expected resistance, not surrender. The envoy continued. "Transfer the individual designated Karash immediately." "Of course," Elias said, "but first we must complete a required procedural step." The envoy frowned. "Explain." "This station is registered under the Independent Frontier Accords," Elias said calmly. "Any transfer of sentient beings requires confirmation of status." The envoy gestured impatiently. "The Concord has declared this individual nonentity." "Yes," Elias said. "Which creates a problem." The envoy's eyes narrowed. Explain. If Karash does not legally exist under conquered law, Elias said, then no external authority can claim jurisdiction over him without redefining that status. That is irrelevant, the envoy replied. Actually, Elias said, it's central. He activated a display. Karash watched as human legal documents appeared, layered and interconnected. Treaties, amendments, exceptions. Humans had been quiet, but they had not been idle. This individual arrived voluntarily, Elias continued. He is unarmed. He has not committed a crime under human law or interstellar civil law. He is requesting asylum. Asylum, the envoy repeated sharply. Yes, Elias said. A concept recognized in over 3,000 council precedents. You cannot grant asylum to a nonentity, the envoy said. Elias nodded. Exactly. Silence filled the room. If Karash is a nonentity, Elias said, then he cannot be seized. If he is an entity, then he has rights. Either way, you do not have authority to take him. The envoy stared at the display, then at Elias. You are exploiting a gap. Elias smiled faintly. We prefer to call it using what exists. The envoy requested time to consult. The delegation withdrew. Karash turned to Elias. You built this for me? No, Elias said softly. We built it for ourselves, a long time ago, for the day someone like you needed it. Karash felt something tighten inside him. Why? Elias looked at him. Because someday humans would be the ones labeled inconvenient. The council delegation returned, visibly unsettled. There is another matter, the envoy said. The Conquered has provided historical records from your shared mission. Karash stiffened. They claim you failed to complete a data transfer before separation, the envoy said. They assert this was an act of negligence. Karash lowered his gaze. It was not negligence. Elias turned sharply. What? Karash looked at him. I withheld the data intentionally. The room went very still. That data, Karash continued, contained predictive models about human behavioral resilience. It concluded that humans were not strategically controllable. The envoy watched closely. I was ordered to submit it, Karash said. I did not. Why? Elias asked quietly. Karash met his eyes. Because the conclusion was incomplete. Incomplete how? Elias asked. It did not account for human loyalty, Karash said. I wish to observe further. The envoy reacted immediately. You committed a breach of interstellar intelligence protocol. Yes, Karash said, I did. And you return now to confess, the envoy asked. Karash shook his head. No, I returned to finish what I began. He turned to Elias. During our final hours on that mission, you said something. You told me that humans do not abandon those they survive with. Elias frowned. I don't remember saying that. You did, Karash said. I recorded it. Karash straightened. I came back to test whether it was true. The envoy looked between them, and Karash's voice was steady. It is. The delegation withdrew again, this time broadcasting the encounter. Across the galaxy, analysts watched in disbelief as a single human outpost dismantled centuries of assumed authority without threats or violence. The council issued a temporary injunction. Karash would remain at Horizon Reach under human protection until status clarification was complete. It was not a victory, but it was a turning point. As the stars drifted past the viewport, Karash stood beside Elias. You did not need to do this, he said. Elias smiled tiredly. Neither did you. The galaxy had underestimated something simple. Humans did not fight every battle with strength. Some battles they won by standing still and refusing to move. The waiting period changed everything. Horizon Reach became the most watched place in that sector of space. Ships did not crowd it, but they stayed close enough to observe. Signals crossed the void constantly. Analysts, diplomats, and historians all tried to understand what was happening because something very old had shifted. Commander Elias Rowan felt it in the way messages were written now. The tone had changed. Less command, more caution. Karash felt it too, though he could not fully name the sensation. His people had always believed that influence came from force, from leverage, from being unavoidable. Humans were showing something else. They were being impossible to push. The Galactic Council released its preliminary findings. Karash could not be seized. The Concord's declaration of nonentity removed their claim over him. At the same time, the Council recognized Karash as a sentient individual present under human jurisdiction. It was an uncomfortable ruling. No one liked it. That made it powerful. The Concord responded with silence. That silence lasted 3 days. On the 4th day, a message arrived that was not public. It was directed only to Elias and Karash. It carried the highest security markings the Concord possessed. Elias read it slowly. "They are offering terms," he said. Karash tilted his head. "They do not offer, they dictate." "They used to," Elias replied. The message was careful. It did not apologize. It did not threaten. It stated that Karash could be reintegrated under special status if he returned immediately and agreed to a memory evaluation and ideological correction. Karash read the message himself. His hands remained steady. "They want to erase what I have learned," he said. Elias nodded. "Pretty much. And if I refuse, they will claim you chose exile permanently," Elias said. "No pursuit, no retaliation." Karash was silent for a long time. "I once believed that choice was freedom," he said. "Now I see it was avoidance." Elias did not interrupt. Karash looked up. "I will not return." The decision felt heavier than any calculation Karash had ever made. He expected fear. He expected uncertainty. What he felt instead was clarity. The refusal was transmitted. The galaxy reacted in small ways first. A trade route adjusted its schedules to favor human ports. A research coalition quietly invited human observers. A defense pact clause was rewritten to include voluntary sentient protection. No announcements were made. No speeches given. But everyone noticed. The Concord finally broke its silence publicly. They released a statement expressing concern over human emotional contagion and warned that such behavior could destabilize long-term order. The statement backfired. Species that had lived under long-term order for centuries recognized the words for what they were: control. Horizon Reach received a visitor request the next cycle, not an envoy, not an enforcer, a civilian ship. It belonged to a minor species that had once lost a member to forced recall. Then another arrived, and another. They did not ask for protection. They asked for precedent. Elias met Karash in the observation room as the stars drifted slowly past. "You see what you started?" Elias asked quietly. Karash shook his head. "No, I see what you revealed." The council convened an emergency session. This time humans were not on the defensive. They were asked questions. "How do you determine loyalty?" "Because the alternative costs more," he said. The council ratified a new clarification. Sentient beings could not be declared non-entities to bypass responsibility. Memory, experience, and choice were recognized as elements of personhood. It was a small change. It rewrote centuries. Karash stood beside Elias when the ruling was broadcast. His people watched from worlds far away, unable to fully process what had happened. "You have altered galactic structure," Karash said. Elias smiled faintly. "We just followed through." Later, when the station was quiet again, Karash asked a question he had carried since his return. "Why did you keep my place?" he asked. "After I left." Elias looked at the empty chair near the viewport, then back at Karash. "Because humans don't close doors just because someone walks away," he said. "Sometimes we leave the light on." Karash considered that. "I came back," he said slowly, "because I believed something was unfinished." Elias nodded. "It was." They stood together, not as commander and guest, not as human and alien, but as two beings who had survived the same darkness and chosen not to forget each other. Across the galaxy, reports circulated. Humans were now considered unpredictable in a new way. Not violent. Not reckless, but persistent. They remembered, they waited, they came back. And for the first time, ancient civilizations understood the danger. Humans did not conquer space by force. They changed it by refusing to let go.